Well, speaking of things that are crazy, the story that just has gone on and on and on. So the UK's antitrust regulator, they go by the CMA, but that stands for Competition and Markets Authority, has announced they decided to formally block their Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
So if you go through, there's several articles and I'm sure gaming podcasts and all kinds of stuff talking about this, because it's like, and we're actually kind of fortunate that it came out today rather than after we recorded, which usually is how a lot
finally,
of the big news
before
happens.
podcast day.
But if you look at the way that they break it down, and I think they even say later on down in the explanation that they're really not so much concerned about this acquisition having negative effects on the console markets, at least not in the immediate by any sense. They're really focusing much more on the cloud gaming aspect of this deal, which I thought at first I was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting take, because I don't remember reading it in all the kind of back and forth prior. I don't remember them. I feel like I remember cloud gaming being mentioned, but I don't remember it being such the big focus for them. But there basically comes down to that they're concerned because Microsoft will have so much advantage in terms of they have so much going for them in the cloud gaming space anyways. They said that Microsoft accounts for an estimated 60 to 70% of global cloud gaming services, and that you add on this, it would be even more incentive for them later on to restrict the games that they control from the Activision and Blizzard, and then not let that go on to competing services and things like that. And I was just like, oh, that's actually an interesting take, that they're really looking at it not so much from is this going to hurt Sony, or is this going to hurt Nintendo, or is this going to hurt, some other player that shows up. They're really looking at it mostly about like, no, the future is probably going to head even more towards these subscriptions, even more towards stuff being based in the cloud and not even buying hardware necessarily, which I think is a smart bet that the things are going to continue to go that way. And that's where their concern is. And then on top of that, they were like, look, the things that Microsoft did come and say, hey, we'll make these concessions. We're signing these 10-year deals with Nintendo and other people. And they're like, yeah, but 10 years isn't good enough, and it's just going to end up falling into something where we're going to have to start stepping in and regulating a bunch of stuff, and we don't like that, so we're just wanting to block the deal.
Wow.
And
that is wild. I did not see this coming, especially from this angle.
Yeah, and I didn't see it either. I'm just with you. Like, I'm in the same boat as you are. And then at the same time, the way that it worked is, so it's a little bit different. So we all know that, at least here in the U.S., the FTC is suing to block the deal. But of what I understand of how that all works, and I'm by no means an expert, is that Microsoft can then go into this battle with the FTC and they can prevail. And they can say they can win out, even though the FTC says we shouldn't do this, they can win the right to be able to still buy Activision and Blizzard, as I understand it. It's just that by the FTC throwing up a big stink, not only does it draw the process out, but there tends to be weight put behind what the FTC says. It's kind of a similar situation in the UK, but a little bit different in that now Microsoft has already come out and said, we don't agree with this. We're going to appeal it, which you would probably expect for them to do. But what that's going to do is that's going to go to like an arbiter or someone kind of, I don't think it's necessarily like a court system per se, but that's going to go to someone and they're going to determine, do we feel like Microsoft kind of is in the right here or has the ability to be like, yeah, maybe the CMA overstepped their bounds or whatever. But if Microsoft wins that, it gets kicked back to the CMA. So it's like, it feels like they can't win this, because like, what is the CMA going to be like? You know what, guys, you made a good point. We were totally tripping. What were we doing? We're going to go ahead for it. Go for it now. We don't have a problem with it. So that's really weird. So it seems like this is, even though it's not technically, it feels like this is a done deal on that front. And then the whole other side that you put onto it, let's say, so the next big one is going to be the EU is going to have something to say about this. So we'll see what they say. And then the FTC. Those are really the only three that we're kind of putting pushback on this. Let's just say that Microsoft beats the FTC here, and let's say the EU decides, it's not that big a deal, and this UK is the only one that does it. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean they can buy it and you just can't sell it in the UK? Or it's like... do they all have to be on board? Does Microsoft have to win on all fronts for it to happen? Like, I just don't know, and this is fascinating to see where this is going to go, because I still hold to this deal is going to get pushed through some way or another. But it's kind of nuts, and it's entertaining to watch. You know, I'm sure not for the big players who have stuff on the line, but since I have nothing on the line, I'm just watching the wreck happen. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. So this made me curious, just because I know they're a powerhouse, the UK, but like, how important are they really? Right. So I'm just looking up. This is just the first thing that's coming up. Top countries when it comes to game revenues. Right. China is number one. You would imagine they have 1 billion people.
Yep.
Funny enough, we're number 2, even though we have nowhere near 1 billion people. Japan is number 3. South Korea number 4. Germany number 5. United Kingdom number 6. And so it's really interesting to see, like, okay, we say fine, go ahead. Like you're saying, like, can just the UK by themselves stop this whole thing from happening because of cloud gaming? And it's just like, really, when I saw that, I was like, because of the cloud, huh? Like, that just seems so random, because I hadn't heard like a sniff about that. You know, everything was about Call of Duty, it felt like. And the fact that they would be able to just, like, you know, and they were like, trust us, it'll be 10 years. And they're like, nah, we're looking at it from this angle. It's just really interesting. Tim, did you see cloud gaming being a reason?
I for this whole time, I've always thought that it's been about market share, and the fact that they have so much market share in console, in gaming, in software, that it feels like a monopoly, but it's not. And how do you get around that, basically?
I do think that's still the way the U.S., like the FTC, is looking at it. I do think they're looking at it.
That is exactly, I think, the way that's how the U.S., I think, sees it. And to be honest, I thought the U.S. would give more grief than the UK or Europe would.
They are suing, so I mean, they're definitely giving grief, but it's just, you just don't know.
Yeah, it's just different. I don't know. I've said it before. Like, I don't know if this is going to go through, just because of that, because it's such a behemoth that. But then again, there's other companies out there that basically own you anyway. So it's like. Or have very little competition, and so I don't know. Like, this is just for me, this could probably be it's just going to delay this acquisition for probably
3
another
years,
at least a year.
Well, they were saying that
then
this
kind of go from
appeals
there.
process that Microsoft has to do can take up to 9 months just on its own.
Jeez.
And then after that, it would go back. Let's say they win that, whatever that appeal process is. Like I said, it goes back to CMA. They can take another 2 to 3 months, 4 months for their second round of decision. And then if they say no still, like, what does that even mean? Like,
you know what's crazy is at the end of the day, it's somebody going, this is going to affect cloud gaming and you guys are going to monopolize that. And them going, no, we won't. And them going, yes, you will. And them going, no, we won't. Yes, you will. No, we won't. Yes, we will. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, how do you, and then what all does Microsoft have to give up to prove that they won't? You know, do they have to break things apart and be like, well, okay, well, we'll lay this and this and this down so that it doesn't look like it? You know, it's just like, there
has to be give and take here. Yeah, there has to be a lot of give and take, and it could be stuff that they don't want to do. So this, I think, is just delaying, and there's going to just be a lot of back and forth.
So the CMA's
what, $67 billion still? Is that what we're talking about, this acquisition?
Like 68,
somewhere around there,
like just under 69.
Yeah, somewhere around there. That's in the B's. So that's a lot of red tape and a lot of paperwork to go through.
So the CMA specifically said that the biggest concern, obviously we mentioned, was the cloud gaming market, where Microsoft is a key player. It said it feared the deal would lead to reduced innovation and less choice for UK gamers over the years to come, and had significant and that Microsoft's proposed solutions had significant shortcomings that would require regulatory oversight in the future by the CMA. So they're like, we don't want to deal with this down the road. Your 10-year deal thing that you're doing is not, one, doesn't apply too much to cloud gaming, although they were saying that there's things where, like, some of these deals, I think that Microsoft had come out and said, like, we'll work something out with GeForce Now, who's another big cloud service right now, but they're like, there's not enough of those that are happening, kind of thing. You've mostly made the big stink about oh, we've said we'll do 10 years with Sony, even though they haven't been playing nice. And we said we'd do 10 years with Nintendo and everything. But they're coming at from like, we really don't even care so much about that. We're coming at this from what we believe the future is going to be and looking more that direction. And I mean, I kind of got to, like, kudos to you for looking outside the box and being like, no, let's not look at the here and now. Let's look at even further, like, where can this really affect things in the future? Because that's really what matters the most. I mean, the here and now is not nearly as important. I mean, it feels like it is because that's what you're dealing with here and now. But so it's
funny because it comes down to what we've said a bunch of times. You know, I've been very vocal saying I don't want this to happen only because I think that competition breeds growth. And then that's exactly what they're saying. They're like, their innovation won't happen. You guys will own the whole thing. You won't even try.
That's right.
And you're like, oh, good. I'm not crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, because that's how I feel.
And then the other thing too, and again, clearly they've got like data and what they expect by dropping 69 billion, how much over the lifetime of owning these, how much money they're going to recoup. And I know that there's obviously a number there, but it makes you wonder, like, okay, how much money is this, let's call it 3 years worth of fighting, adding on to this total cost? And is all that worth it?
That's
I mean,
right.
like, what if this now makes the end deal, let's say it all ends up going through, what if at that end deal you've knocked on the door of 100 billion? Like, is that worth it? It's like, I mean, I guess it is to them.
Right.
They got all the analytics that say that answer, but it's just someone like me. I was like, my gosh, this has got to be costing them so much money just going through all this fight.
I just can't imagine.
Yeah, of course, I can't imagine.
They just had their earnings. They just had their earnings this week too, and they just blew it out of the water. I mean, the amount of money that this company makes, though. I mean,
to their point.
No, Microsoft.
Yeah,
Microsoft,
but to their kind of almost in their corner in a way, at least on the other thing. What didn't blow it out of the water in a lot of metrics was their gaming side.
Yeah,
like all their other tech stuff was like lifting it up, like everything's going great. And the tech side,
huge,
so it's like
everything's huge.
I mean, I thought when
the Xbox side,
when I started reading those, I was like, well, this can only help their case because I mean, if they're struggling, you know, through hardware sales or services or what, if all these numbers are down, like that could only bolster their case that they need help. You know, I would think.
Right.
Of course, it probably didn't help that both of these things were. I mean, the decision was made weeks ago. They're just announcing it today. You know what I mean, kind of thing. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
We shall see.
Yeah, it's crazy.